Hello guys, I'm welcome to my new video, and today we're going to be looking at not exactly a tier list but more of a categorization of healers when it comes to being chill, being not intensive, and being strong when it comes to that Mythic Plus content in Season 3. This video stems from the fact that I got so many messages from people asking about which healer is easy to play, or how do I say, not going to break your hand. Basically, we're talking about things like APM, actions per minute. This video is aimed at people who are looking to pick up healers in Season 3 that feel strong, and you can do these long hours of Mythic Plus grinding and still feel like, hey, I can keep going. This is basically what the whole idea of the video is. And again, if you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and these are the categories that I'm going to be using. Again, this is not really a tier list, but chill and strong. This means that healers that I could do long sessions of Mythic Plus grinding in Season 3 and still feel like I can keep going, and they're also very strong right now. Now keep in mind, the power of healers can shift and change at any given moment, so that's something to really consider. And then I have a category for chill but less strong. So these are the healers that I could still do long hour sessions in terms of Mythic Plus grinding, but they might not be as powerful as the healers here. Again, power can change. So in turn, you could say that a healer that might not be super strong in Mythic Plus might feel a little bit less chill, but that's up to you to decide. And then I have a category for strong but not chill. So these are the healers that might feel strong in Mythic Plus in Season 3 based on all my testing so far, but they will break your hand. And honestly, after a multiple hour session, you're probably going to be like, hey, I've had enough, or at least depending on the person that you are. And then the last section in terms of difficult, honestly, I made this section specifically for one healing spec out there because I wasn't sure where to place them in other categories, and that's basically the main reason. So let's go and get started. And we're gonna start off with the first healer, and honestly, the goat of chill is going to be Totemic Resto Shaman, and that is going to continue in Season 3. I've been banging on about Totemic Resto Shaman in terms of ease of play, in terms of the passive healing that you get in multiple of my videos, and that is going to continue in Season 3. You have to look at the amount of passive healing that you get as Totemic Resto Shaman with things like Searching Totem. I think Totemic is going to fit the best in those, how to say, clumped up or melee comps, and I think there is a chance that Totemic Resto Shaman could still be somewhat meta when it comes to that physical comp. We'll have to see, so this is why I'm placing it in the strong section. So Totemic Resto Shaman has an insane amount of passive healing. You have Searching Totem, which works insanely well in clumped up groups. You have things like Healing Stream Totem, which gets empowered by talents like Reactivity. You have lively totems, which means that certain totems are also going to shoot out chain heal, which basically all culminates to the fact that you are doing so much passive healing, which allows you to focus on other things like your utility. You have an insane interrupt, you can have a knock-up, knockback, you can have a stun, you can have decurse, purge, you can slow things, you can speed up things. There's a lot of things that you can do as a shaman, and with Totemic Resto Shaman, the amount of passive healing that you're providing, it allows you to focus on other things, especially in those melee comps. And you also have to remember that Totemic Resto Shaman doesn't really like haste all that much, which means that it is relatively slow, and some people are going to like that, some people are not, but honestly, I could do hours and hours of Mythic Plus grinding as Totemic Resto Shaman. On the flip side, if you do enjoy Farseer, you can try out Farseer. I think it feels very fun in Season 3. I do like the tier set, I do like the power that you get or tied into Ancestral Swiftness, but Farseer likes haste more than Totemic. Farseer kind of requires you to press buttons because once you proc your ancestors, you want to make use of the ancestors and you need to press DPS or healing abilities, so it feels more involved. Farseer Resto Shaman is not as chill as Totemic, so this is why Totemic Resto Shaman is making that list, because I genuinely think it is one of the most chill healers out there. It does not like haste, and it's also really strong and possibly climb into that meta when it comes to physical comps. But keep in mind, this video is looking at chill, easy healers. This is why I'm making this differentiation between Farseer and Totemic. Do not sleep on Farseer. I've actually had a lot of fun on Season 3, and I think it can be a nice alternative to Totemic. Now, another healer that I'm going to include in this list is going to be Discipline Priest, or specifically Oracle Discipline Priest. Now, we all know the power of Oracle and the power of shielding. If you look at the tier set, you're getting powerful shields more often because of how Premonition of Insight works. You can use that in order to get more penances into shields because of how Will and Woe talent is going to amplify your shields. Now, as an Oracle Discipline Priest, you can have a decent amount of haste because you might have talents like Borrowed Time, and there's going to be additional haste gain from that. But I feel like I can do long sessions with Oracle Discipline Priest and still have a good time because you are a bit of that passenger princess, because you don't have an interrupt, you're CC and all those things are not really amazing when you compare to some other healers out there. So you're just kind of staying at the back, and in lower end Mythic Plus content, you can absolutely get carried by that penance into shield interaction. When you get higher, when you do higher Mythic Plus content, you'll have to make use of your full toolkit, which is, I'm telling you right now, very full. But at the end of the day, I can do really long sessions as Oracle without stressing too much. I actually enjoy the big shields. I think it is part of the class fantasy, but I think it just makes balancing really, really hard. We'll have to see if Blizzard is going to do anything about that in the future. Now, I did test out Void Weaver and things like that, and Void Weaver is the master of AoE healing, and it does feel very visually pleasing. For example, pressing Mind Blast, proccing Tropic Rift, and pressing Void Blast. All of these things have a feel to it and a visual notification. I also think if anything happens to Oracle Discipline Priest, because a lot of people have been talking about the power of Oracle shields, I think Void Weaver would make for a nice alternative. You have to remember, Discipline Priest, especially in Mythic Plus content, has been dumbed down a lot in the last couple expansions, and I think Void Weaver, it might feel a little bit intensive to play, but I don't think it's the most difficult healer to manage. And based on some of my PTR testing, Void Weaver damage is insane, and you can pump AoE healing. Now, we did talk about the whole Passenger Princess type of thing when it comes to Discipline Priest. That can be a good or a bad thing if you have a really good Mythic Plus group and they're doing their interrupts and all those things. But if you have a group that is constantly missing interrupts, not doing any form of CC, it can feel a little bit punishing, and the chill levels are going to heavily depend on the type of group you join. And now let's move on to the second section. And again, this is not really a tier list. This is basically categorization of healers depending on how they feel based on my personal opinions. But I'm going to be talking about healers that are relatively chill, but they might not be as powerful as some of the healers right now. At the end of the day, the power of healers can still change. I've been talking about that throughout the video, but I'm going to place Oracle Holy Priest, specifically Oracle Holy Priest, because Archon Holy Priest is not doing well, and I'm really hoping that's going to change in the future. But Oracle Holy Priest is one of those reactive healers. Now keep in mind, every healer has proactive elements in their toolkit, but certain healers rely more on reactive type of gameplay. Now, Holy Priest by a lot of players might be viewed as an entry or a basic healer. I can understand where people are coming from, but at the end of the day, I still feel like if you really want to master a healer, it's going to take a lot of time. And with Oracle as a Holy Priest, you have more spot healing because of how tier set works with Prayer of Mending. You can have more Prayer and Mendings because of how Premonition of Insight works, and you're getting more Premonition of Insights, therefore you're getting more Prayer of Mending, so you're getting more of that spot healing capabilities added. I've tested multiple different builds with Prayer of Healing, without Prayer of Healing. At the end of the day, I don't think it's the most difficult healer out there. I think it is relatively chill to play, but I also don't think it's the strongest healer out there. So you could make an argument that in certain situations you might struggle, which in turn might not make this healer as chill. But I think that's going to be heavily dependent on the type of keys you're doing. If you're not looking to push rank 1 keys and things like that, I don't think you should worry about this. And as a Holy Priest, you are suffering from that Passenger Princess syndrome just as a Discipline Priest, because you don't have an interrupt, you have a lack of CC options when compared to some of the other healers, which can honestly be a good thing depending on the type of person you are. Because I know there's a lot of players out there who want to re-roll a healer and they're like, I don't want to track off everyone's CC or interrupts. I just want to sit back, relax, and just heal people when they need healing. And honestly, Holy Priest or Oracle Holy Priest can tick those boxes. And to touch a little bit more about the power of Priest right now, as I'm making this video, I've tested Mythic Plus and I've tested Raids, and I know this video is about Mythic Plus, but Holy Priest genuinely feels a lot stronger in Raid content right now than it does in Mythic Plus. And on the opposite side, Discipline Priest actually feels a lot better in Mythic Plus than it does in Raid. So it genuinely feels like both of the Priest specs right now have genuine disadvantages and advantages depending on which content you want to focus on. And now let's talk about our next healer in this list, and that is going to be Holy Paladin. Now, I do think that in certain situations, Holy Paladin is teetering on being chill and not being chill. So it did take me a little time to decide on where I want to place it, but I'm going to place this in this chill but less strong section right now. And honestly, in terms of Mythic Plus builds, Holy Paladin is a wild west. I personally did not have an amazing time with Herald of the Sun. I felt like it was extremely punishing if you messed up your cooldowns. And with Lightsmith, there is a lot of builds kind of appearing. People are playing around Flash of Light, because you have to remember, in Season 3, Blizzard is making some substantial changes when it comes to Infusion of Light. The proc chance has been reduced, or at least Blizzard's idea is that, hey, we're reducing Infusion of Light proc chance, but we're buffing some of the associated spells. So when you get Infusion of Light, it feels like something that is cool. But I honestly think that Blizzard kind of forgot that with Lightsmith, you have talents like Laying Down Arms, which gives you way more Infusion of Light procs, and people are taking advantage of this. They're building or making builds around Flash of Light. They're picking talents that empower those abilities. There is also a lot of cheesing to be done with cancel aura macros in order to provide additional control over your Infusion of Light procs during your Holy Armament usage. And I honestly tried out this build a couple of times without the cancel aura macro gameplay, because I just hope that's not going to go live the way that it is right now. I don't even want to talk or go into detail too much, but I tried out this build with Lightsmith with extra power in terms of flashlights. Remember, with Infusion of Light, your flashlight is instant, so if you like that melee gameplay, it's not really taking away from that. Now, a big disclaimer and an update to this video. I know I'm pushing when placing Holy Paladin in that chill section, because I can tell you right now, I've been testing multiple different talent builds, and some of them are definitely do not feel chill. And considering the fact that Holy Paladin is a bit of a mess right now. For example, I wanted to test Lightsmith a little bit further in the new PTR build that was released today, and Hammer and Anvil does no healing. An integral part of Lightsmith and the tier set was just not working. That's just to showcase that there is so many issues with Holy Paladin in terms of testing, and honestly, I'm not sure what the best build is going to be. I'm not sure what the best talent builds are going to be, because certain talents can make this healer more chill or less chill. And in hindsight, the safest option for me would be to create a new row, something along the lines of question mark, because there is so many question marks around Holy Paladin, and place it in this row. But for the sake of simplicity and the continuity of the video, I'm gonna keep it in the same row. Just keep in mind there is a disclaimer to it, and I'm expecting changes to Holy Paladin, and I think a lot of people are waiting for something to happen. So now let's move on to the next section, and that is strong healers but are not chill. So this is a section where these healers felt relatively strong for multiple different reasons when it comes to that meticulous content, but these healers will absolutely break your hands. I can tell you right now, if you're doing a long session with these specific healers in this meticulous content, you will feel exhausted. And a lot of these healers, I really enjoy the gameplay, but I just cannot do these long sessions because they're so intensive. And honestly, the prime candidate for this is going to be Conduit of the Celestial Mistweaver Monk. And honestly, this tier set is going to give you a high uptime of additional haste. Mistweavers already like haste, so you're getting more haste. You're also getting additional CDR because of how hard of the Jade Serpent works. So you're pressing buttons all of the time, and it can feel absolutely exhausting. And because how the tier set works for this hero build, you will have access to more Thunder Focus T, which means you'll have access to more Crackling Jade Lightnings, and Crackling Jade Lightning with Jade Empowerment feels really fun to press. So there's a lot of things that are fun around Mistweaver Monk or Conduit of the Celestial Mistweaver Monk, but honestly, in terms of APM or actions per minute, this is a healer that is going to appeal to a certain group out there. If you're looking for something extremely intensive, on top of the fact that you are a melee healer, there is a lot of players out there, especially new players, who might find it daunting to play a melee healer, a healer that requires you to stay in melee as much as possible, on top of the fact that he has one of the highest APM or action per minutes out there, and all of a sudden you're getting something that is going to appeal to a certain player group, but it's also going to be extremely intensive. So just a little disclaimer. Now, I did try out Master of Harmony Mistweaver Monk. Their tier set was buffed very recently. There's been substantial changes to Mistweaver Monk in terms of how your Vivify works, or the power of Vivify, and there's been nerfs to Chi Harmony. Based on my testing so far, Master of Harmony might actually be the more chill of the hero builds, because you don't have the access to haste and CDR that you have with Conduit of the Celestial. But being a melee healer is still somewhat exhaustive, so I'm still going to be placing Mistweaver Monk here. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure what the best build is going to be for Mistweaver Monk when it comes to meticulous content, because Blizzard is targeting Mistweaver Monk. They're doing some impactful changes recently, so we'll have to see. But a melee healer at the end of the day, a healer that enjoys haste, a healer that has high APM, it can feel exhausting, but it can also feel extremely fun. Now, another healer that I'm going to include in this list is going to be a Restoration Druid. And for anyone who's been playing Resto Druid, they're fully aware. Resto Druid enjoys haste a lot. It's one of those healers where you do have setup time, so you're clicking a lot of the times, you're setting up, and Honestly, I've been trying out Wildstalker Resto Druid, and I think the healing in Season 3 is very, very strong. I think you could make an argument that Wildstalker Resto Druid might have some of the highest potential when it comes to pure healing in that Mythic Plus content, but we'll have to test out more healers, and we'll have to see if there's going to be more changes. And with Wildstalker Resto Druid, you do have to set up for moments when you feel like there's going to be healing, and if you want to optimize every single aspect of this spec, you might go into kitty form, apply bleeds, and know when you can do that. So there is a high skill ceiling attached to Resto Druid in general. It is a healer that enjoys a lot of haste. It is a healer that you're always pressing buttons. And I love Resto Druid, but I can tell you after a long Mythic session, I might be like, hey, I need a break. Now, I have tested a little bit more of that Keeper of the Grove Resto Druid, and honestly, I don't think it really compares to Wildstalker right now. Keeper of the Grove tier set gives you more burst healing when you press Convoke and all those things, which is great, but you're already getting more healing when you're pressing Convoke. And then your 4-set bonus honestly didn't really feel all that impactful. So I'm not sure if there's going to be more changes, but Keeper of the Grove did not feel in the same level as Wildstalker right now. So that is going to probably upset a couple of people out there, because I got so many questions about Keeper of the Grove right now. But I generally think if you're pushing the highest Mythic Plus content right now, you will be playing Wildstalker. Now, that could easily change in the future, but for this video, this is how I felt. And now the last healer in this list that I made a specific role for, and that is called difficult, is Preservation Evoker, or more specifically Chrono Warden Preservation Evoker, because honestly, I don't think Preservation Evoker is going to break your hand in terms of constant clicking and all those things. I actually feel that I could do long sessions with Preservation Evoker and feel fine and feel like, hey, let's do more keys. But in terms of the difficulty, especially for new players, I think Preservation Evoker is arguably one of the hardest healers to pick up when it comes to that Mythic Plus. I can tell you right now, new players are going to struggle with optimizing concepts like Lifeline, optimizing things like Echoes, optimizing your stasis, the fact that you are a proactive healer and you need to anticipate or know damage before it happens, and then you also have range limitations. Now, range limitations might not be an issue at all, but it is worth mentioning because especially new players might not know ways to play around it. And based on my testing for Chrono Ward and Preservation Evoker, the thing that stood out the most is their DPS. I think their damage is absolutely insane. So if you like healer damage, I think you might gravitate towards Preservation Evoker. I don't think this spec is going to break your hand, as I mentioned multiple times, but the knowledge that it requires is pretty substantial. Now, I do want to talk about the raid a little bit, because Flame Shaper Preservation Evoker, it has a very different gameplay. So if you're picking Prez, you're going to have a very different gameplay when it comes to Mythic Plus, and very different gameplay when it comes to raiding, and that can actually be a pretty fun aspect. Now, this video is focusing on Mythic Plus, so I don't want to waffle on too much about raiding, but I just want to showcase the fact that you can have very different gameplay when it comes to Preservation Evoker, which might appeal to certain players. So in terms of the summary of the video, remember, this is not really a tier list, this is a categorization of healers for players who are looking to pick up healers that are relatively chill. And again, the chill aspect doesn't always mean the simplicity of the spec. It also talks about the intensity, it talks about APM, we talked about actions per minute, things like that. I'm talking from a perspective in terms of, if I were to play certain of these healing specs for 5-6 hours straight, am I going to feel exhausted? Again, we talked about Conduit of the Celestial, Mistweaver Monk, and the APM, the additional haste. This is gonna break your hand, but it does feel powerful and it can be really fun, so it might be a healer for you. We talked about Totemic Resto Shaman, who in my eyes is the OG chill healer. It doesn't really like haste a lot, it can sometimes feel a little bit slow, but the amount of passive healing that you're doing, I could play this healer all day without feeling tired. We talked about some of the healers that are somewhat chill to play, but they might not be as powerful as of right now in terms of recording this video, because again, the power of healers can change constantly. There's still time left until Season 3 is going to be released. You could make an argument that if a healer is relatively easy to play, but they're not that powerful, that it might not be chill anymore because you have to sweat in these keys. But honestly, that's something that I let you decide. In terms of Oracle Holy Priest, I don't think it's the most intensive healer. I think it's relatively chill. And in terms of the power of Priest, I genuinely think that right now Holy Priest is probably stronger in raid than it is in Mythic Plus content, but anything can change, and this video is mainly focusing on Mythic Plus. And for Holy Paladin, make sure to check out the Holy Paladin section, because there is a disclaimer that I'm gonna repeat right now, because Honestly, Holy Paladin is a bit of a mess in terms of the bugs, in terms of the tuning. People are waiting for something to happen. And because of this, there's a lot of different builds that people are experimenting with, testing out. I talk about it in the Paladin section in terms of some of the new builds, in terms of some of the new experimentation. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if Holy Paladin is going to end up being chill, because it is going to be dependent on your talent choices. Some talents feel chill, some talents don't feel that chill because they're more involved. So a safer option would have been to place Holy Paladin in a new question mark row, because honestly that's how I feel about Holy Paladin throughout this whole PTR session so far. For the sake of simplicity, I tried to squeeze it into this row right here. If you look at the power of Holy Paladin in all forms of content, in Raid and Mythic Plus, I think Holy Paladin is one of the candidates for, hey, we need some help. We talked about Oracle the Swing Priest because at the end of the day, shielding is strong regardless of what type of Mythic Plus content you're doing. I played a little bit Void Weaver. I actually really enjoy Void Weaver as well. I think it's a fun kind of hero build out there. Priest in general can suffer from the fact that you don't have interrupts, you don't have a lot of forms of CC when you compare to some other healers, and it feels like if you join some of these pug groups as a priest, your enjoyment of that spec is going to heavily dependent on the type of group you join. If you join people who don't press their defensives, don't press their interrupts, don't press their CC, you're not going to have an amazing time. So that's something to consider. We talked about Restoration Druid. While talking Resto Druid is arguably one of the top HPS healers when it comes to that 5-man content. I did try out Keeper of the Grove. I wasn't a huge fan of Keeper of the Grove in terms of the power right now, but that might change. And then obviously we're talking about Preservation of Evoker, specifically Chrono Ward and Preservation of Evoker. I wasn't sure where to place Pres, so I made a specific role for it because I don't think Preservation of Evoker is going to break your hand. I can do long sessions with this healer, but in terms of the knowledge that is required to optimize this healer in every single aspect, it can be extremely daunting, especially if you're new to the game. So guys, let me know how you feel about this video. Let me know if you would change anything in this list, if you would categorize healers differently. And again, if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you in my next guide.